After being reborn, me, a top web novelist, I only write half of each new book. The rising music star only writes a verse of each new song. The new painter only releases line art. None of our works have sequels. After posting, we anxiously check Ethan Miller's account. This time too, his account updated right before ours with identical content. So we just gave up, went to an estate and played cards every day. Sure enough, his subsequent content became a mess. In my past life, the three rising stars of the literary, music, and art scenes, us, were caught in a plagiarism scandal, nailed to the pillar of shame. All our published works could be found on the genius young master Ethan Miller's page, posted 3 days before ours. A tidal wave of online harassment and massive compensation demands crashed down on us. My adoptive parents despised me, my reputation was ruined, and I was even hounded to death by debt collectors. My fiancée, Sophia, seeking to vent Ethan's anger, poisoned the musician's throat, rendering her mute, and severed the artist's hand tendons. When I opened my eyes again, I was back the night before Ethan became famous. I deleted my original draft and wrote a new one. The story unfolded again, even more brilliant than before. But as I reached the end, I hesitated, unwilling to write the final words. I had poured so much effort into this work, planting numerous foreshadowing elements. I wanted the characters to have a resounding, fulfilling conclusion. Yet, before I could even write the ending, Ethan Miller had once again published a new book online. The plot progression, aside from slight differences in writing style and characterization, was astonishingly similar to mine. And his update schedule mirrored mine exactly, only always 3 days earlier. A chill ran down my spine. I searched the room, checked my computer, but found no surveillance devices. Forcing myself to calm down, I went to the kitchen. When I hit writer's block or felt down, I liked to grab a drink from the fridge for a slight buzz. But then I saw Ethan Miller in the living room. He closed his laptop and looked at me with a pleasant smile. "Alex, still up so late?" he asked. Just as I was about to reply, I heard a faint electronic voice. "Host, as soon as he finishes the ending today, you can use the system's future web access to search all online content 3 days from now." System, only 3 days ahead? Can't it be longer? Correct, host. Predicting 3 days into the future is sufficient for you to be hailed as a genius in this world. My heart skipped a beat. I could hear his thoughts. From their conversation, I understood everything. Ever since he was brought back to the Miller family, he had awakened this system. It functioned like an internet search engine, capable of searching partial content within the next 3 days. So far, it had only unlocked access to the arts. If upgraded, it could reveal content across all fields. I finally knew why he could always anticipate the direction of our works. For songs and paintings, he could only replicate a rough approximation, lacking the heavenly voice or steady hand. But text could be copied verbatim. That's why, in my past life, the backlash against my work was the most severe. Looking at the work I'd poured my nights into, I had no choice but to contact my editor and request it be taken down before trouble found me. "Adrian, what are you thinking?" my editor exclaimed over the phone. "There's absolutely nothing wrong with this piece. Did my pushing for deadlines put too much pressure on you? You really don't need to be such a perfectionist, you know?" I sighed and forwarded the link to Ethan's website. As expected, silence followed. "Your writing is much stronger than his," my editor finally said. "If I hadn't worked through the plot with you, even I might have been confused. There's nothing we can do. He got there first. We just have to accept it." He sighed, equally helpless. "I think I'll take a break for a while," I replied with a weary smile. I knew there were too many uncontrollable factors. I had to figure things out. A few days later, one morning, I was casually eating breakfast, enjoying a moment of peace, when Ethan Miller came downstairs looking troubled, a hint of panic in his eyes. "Alex, haven't you been writing lately?" he asked with a smile, his tone probing. Hearing his internal debate with the system, I smiled back and nodded. "Just been a bit tired recently. Planning to rest for a bit." His expression flickered. A smile touched my eyes. The ending to my story was still a long way off. But Ethan was getting anxious now. Countless fans online were clamoring for updates, making him nervous. If he suddenly abandoned the story, he'd face enormous contractual penalties. He had only one option: write the ending himself. I smirked. I had laid countless plot traps in the first half. Abruptly changing the author would feel jarring to readers. Despite this, the work was eventually selected for screen adaptation. The early plot was brilliant, and the ending he cobbled together was considered flawed but didn't completely overshadow the beginning. I chuckled softly, watching Ethan on the awards stage, a cold glint in my eyes. It reminded me of how Gao Yi finished Dream of the Red Chamber. No matter how good, he could never replace Chao Shuichin. No two leaves are ever identical. Under the spotlight was Ethan Miller's smiling face. He glanced at me, his eyes holding a deep, knowing look. Clearly, he'd noticed I had taken down my work. He beamed at me as if praising my good sense. "I want to thank my brother, Alex," he announced. "He gave me countless inspirations." A pause. "Unfortunately, my brother's work met an untimely end. My brother's pen name is Adrian. If you get the chance, please support his work." He looked at me again, his eyes brimming with malice. I knew that even though he'd tasted success, he still wanted to crush me into the abyss. But fate had sent me back, giving me a chance for rebirth after death. "I know Adrian. I'm a fan," someone in the audience shouted. "He had so many great works a few years ago." "Yeah. And didn't his new book suddenly get taken down recently?" I read the beginning. The setup seemed similar to Ethan North's book. But Adrian's writing is so solid, and his plots twist in ways you can never predict. Adrian's always a perfectionist. Can't wait for his next work. I smiled faintly. I'm the type of writer who builds up a large backlog and update fiend. I usually finish the whole story before posting it in installments. Thank goodness for the system's 3-day limit. Otherwise, I'd be repeating the same tragedy. Hearing the fans' comments, Ethan's face tightened on stage, though he maintained his smile, albeit a stiff one. My lips curled into a sneer. Rome wasn't built in a day. True skill in any field comes from building foundations from the ground up. I didn't want to watch Ethan's hypocritical performance any longer, so I turned and left. As I reached the exit, a hand grabbed my arm. A sharp female voice said, "I remember it clearly. In our last life, the person on that stage receiving the award was you." I looked at the man and woman before me, both wearing masks, and guessed their identities. "Let's talk somewhere else," the man Leo said softly, removing his mask. I gently brushed the woman's, Chloe's, hand away and nodded. "Sorry," Chloe murmured, the tips of her ears turning slightly red, realizing her abruptness. "I assume we're all the same, returned from the future to the present," I said, stirring my coffee. The bitterness of the hot Americano, with its rich aroma, was perfect for us nocturnal writers. "I've been secretly monitoring his work," Leo said. "I noticed that whenever I finish and upload a painting, his account mysteriously shows a post from 3 days prior. The work in it is just a crudely made copy. But no matter how we searched 3 days ago, we couldn't find it anywhere." "But," I stated flatly, taking a sip of coffee, "he posts first, so he holds the advantage." I knew the system employed methods to hide their original data. Chloe looked at me, her eyes filled with resentment. She clenched her fists. Was there really no way out? Music was her lifelong dream. She couldn't just give it up. I noticed her glass was filled with an excessive amount of ice. In her past life, a mob had forced boiling water down her throat, scalding it. I sighed and asked the waiter to replace her drink with a room-temperature latte. "Drinking too much ice water isn't good for you, especially since cold can also irritate the throat," I explained gently. Leo's eyes were red-rimmed. As he reached for his coffee cup, his hand slipped, sending coffee splashing everywhere. The sound of the shattering cup made him flinch and crouch down, trembling. The trauma of having his tendons severed in his past life still haunted him. I helped him up and guided him to a nearby chair, asking the waiter, who came to clean up, for a glass of hot water. I can't stop painting," he mumbled, his voice thick with emotion. "My mom ruined her health to pay for my art lessons. If I don't earn money painting, she'll die," he whispered despairingly. In the previous life, after the plagiarism accusations, Leo was reduced to sketching portraits on the street. Ethan's extremist fans tore up his drawings. His sick mother tried to protect him, dragging her frail body, only to be pushed down by the indiscriminate mob, triggering a relapse of her old illness. Bystanders watched coldly, refusing to help, even adding insults. He could only watch helplessly as his mother passed away. When he tried to confront Ethan Miller for an explanation, he was caught before he could even get close and had his hand tendons cut. Is there really no way? Both their eyes held a flicker of despair. Alex, are you really just going to accept this? Chloe choked out, her eyes red. I sighed. What's done is done. What can I do? We can't change. No, wait. Something clicked in my mind, and I jumped up. The past can't be changed. It's set in stone. But the future can be altered by us. And the moment to change the future is. Their eyes suddenly lit up with fierce joy, like finding a beacon in the abyss. It's now. I rented an estate in the countryside, and the three of us moved in. Covering Leo's mother's medical expenses wasn't difficult for me now. Consider it an investment, I said, clasping his hand with a smile. From now on, you'll design all the covers and illustrations for my new books. Let's just stay here peacefully for a while. Oh, by the way, I leaned in and whispered something in their ears. After a long moment, the three of us looked at each other and smiled. I started several new books. Similarly, Chloe released new song snippets, and Leo posted new line art. My books were only half written, Chloe's songs were just verses, and Leo's drawings were only sketches. All unfinished works, all bait, luring Ethan Miller into the trap. Ethan's account updated again. His works received praise once more, and countless people flooded his comment sections, urging him to post more. Ethan North is a god. So multi-talented. A true genius. The top talent in New York has to be Ethan North. Adrian just writes well, but Ethan North is good at everything. Ah, truly our national young master. Love him. OMG. Call me hubby. Ethan Miller's fame soared, becoming synonymous with talent in the circle. The Miller family's status rose accordingly. Once, an Alex had revived their fortunes. Now, an Ethan Miller brought them renown. Amidst the honors and spotlights, Ethan Miller hid his growing unease behind a forced smile. Meanwhile, back at the estate, pair of aces. Pass. Bomb. The peaceful life was enjoyable, and our creative juices flowed freely. It's time to reel in the net, everyone. The way to break the deadlock was actually simple. Ethan's system could see 3 days into the future. But internet search algorithms have a common flaw. They tend to prioritize content from accounts with more engagement or history. Since Ethan was fixated on the three of us, we had to use ourselves as bait. People naturally gravitate towards familiar accounts first. Are you guys really planning to do this? My editor, as well as Chloe's and Leo's agents, all sounded bewildered. Ethan Miller's account had started updating again, even launching several new projects. Unfortunately for him, many of his works showed a distinct pattern of starting strong but fizzling out. What's up with Ethan North lately? I feel like something's off, like he's become a different person. The beginnings always hook me, but after a while it just feels weird. Not like the same person wrote it. Yeah, his songs are like that too. The intro is often the best part, but where the emotion should build, it just falls flat. His art is strange too. The sketches are imaginative, but the finished pieces lack soul. What's our next move? Seeing Ethan step further into the trap, Leo and Chloe felt a thrill mixed with apprehension. Online, comments started appearing. Hey, have you noticed? Lately, Chloe, Leo, and even Adrian, all their new stuff is just beginnings. And they seem kind of similar to Ethan Miller's stuff. Could it be? No way. Look, my hubby always posts first. How could he be copying them? Besides, Ethan's works are complete. If anyone's copying, it's them. Reading these comments chilled me to the bone. A bitter smile touched Chloe's and Leo's lips. So, systems like in novels really did exist. Unfortunately, this wasn't some parallel world. This was their hard work, their lifeblood. Ethan knew this, yet he chose to steal the flesh and blood of others to nourish himself. I knew Ethan was getting desperate. My adoptive parents called, urging me to come home. You've been gone so long. Your brother Ethan is worried about you. When are you coming back? How could they not have realized Ethan was copying my work? The Millers, that couple, were as cunning as monkeys. I gave a faint smile. Mom, didn't you already disown me? We're family. Angry words don't count, do they? I glanced down at the agreement in my hand, clearly itemized and stamped with an official seal. Yes, family indeed. The moment Ethan stood on that award stage, their attitude towards me had plummeted. Their biological son could create more value, while I, the outsider, was no longer useful. So, unlike in my past life, they were surprisingly eager for me to leave this time. They even presented me with this detailed document. Of all my assets accumulated over the years, I got back less than 1%. We raised you for so many years. This is only right, they'd said. Looking at this shameless family, I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Who raised whom, exactly? If you're leaving, you can't take things that don't belong to you. I saw the smirk in Ethan's eyes behind them and turned away. Things that don't belong to them. I hoped they could hold onto them tightly. The mines I had planted were about ready to detonate. Virality isn't magic. It's science. A pearl covered in dust is still a pearl. To counter Ethan's surveillance, we chose to start new accounts. What we posted on our main, famous accounts were just drafts. Our real, polished works were published on obscure burner accounts. Ethan's targeted searches were limited. The internet is a vast ocean. He wouldn't notice those inconspicuous corners. Just like how he lured me into his trap before. Works published on new accounts naturally take time to gain traction. But netizens aren't fools. They can recognize quality. They can see the truth. People have an innate attraction to beauty. The longer the wine ages, the more fragrant it is when uncorked. So, when our 3 burner accounts were finally discovered, what awaited Ethan Miller was an endless crisis. We had initially foregone the boost from our established fame, believing that good wine needs no bush. The system's loophole was easy to find. We were simply doing to Ethan what he had done to us. His system would alert him to future updates on the accounts he followed. Who would have thought we'd choose to publish the complete content on burner accounts slightly before his system's 3-day window even opened? No ordinary person would imagine we'd abandon millions of followers to cultivate new accounts from scratch. Sure enough, as we updated the drafts on our main accounts, the content he was monitoring showed up via his system again. He crudely copied our drafts and posted them, dated 3 days prior. He really was watching us like a hawk, I mused, looking at his updates. Unfortunately for him, the comment sections under his works were now filled with curses. Time reveals all truths. Fine wine mellows, sour soup spoils. People started realizing something was wrong. Sharp-eyed netizens found our new aliases. The whole truth came out, and what awaited Ethan Miller was a deluge of doubt and accusations. Our complete works on the burner accounts were posted just an hour or so before his plagiarized versions appeared. Ethan Miller panicked. My adoptive parents' calls came flooding in, frantic. How much money do you want? Alex, hurry up and release a statement saying it was all a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. A sarcastic smile touched my lips. In my past life, I had begged my parents, telling them it was a misunderstanding, pleading with them to give me a chance, but they had said it was the retribution I deserved. Yes, retribution. Only now it was their turn to face it. This blow plunged Ethan into crisis. He was severely hit, but he wouldn't give up so easily. Our new accounts were targeted again. When we launched new works, sure enough, he started his tricks again. I knew, of course, that he had reactivated his system. Coincidentally, our respective new book signing events were scheduled for the same day. The conversation between him and the system flooded my mind once more. Only this time, he could only foresee content 1 day ahead. It seemed our previous counterattack had caused his system to malfunction temporarily. I didn't know the system's ultimate goal, but I knew I needed to deal with it quickly. Ethan was smarter this time. He followed everything related to me, both our main and burner accounts. Every day, he obsessively searched for keywords related to the next day's content in his mind. But the world changes in an instant. No one can completely grasp the future, nor easily change the past. All we can ever truly hold onto is the present. Ethan's delusion of riding above the data stream, using a future perspective like a god, was fundamentally impossible. So, when one after another of our aliases exploded like bombs in front of him, his system finally crashed completely. Useless. Giving you future sight is wasted on you. The system's voice echoed in my hearing. He finally understood that some things couldn't be obtained through shortcuts. Online skepticism towards him was mounting rapidly. Yet, he still had die-hard fans like my former fiancée, Sophia. A dark glint passed through my eyes. When the three of us were drowning in despair in our past lives, it was she who cut off our last lifeline, the final straw. Suddenly, a large number of online trolls appeared, switching sides to defend him. When a single drop of ink falls into clear water, it might dissipate, hidden. But when a large blob of ink is poured in, it corrupts the whole. The online attacks of the past life. This time, we wouldn't be defeated. At an emergency press conference he called, I heard the system urging him, please slap down the protagonist and supporting characters quickly to complete the mission. Your future search range is now only 1 hour. If it reaches 0, the system will unbind. I smiled at Leo and Chloe beside me, relaying what I'd heard. A look of fierce satisfaction flashed in their eyes. Leave it to us, they whispered back. Leo walked up to Ethan Miller, a broad smile on his face. How about we do a live painting demonstration right here? Let's use those previous sketches, Leo added cheerfully. But, I'm not prepared, Ethan stammered. At the press conference, his face was pale as he looked out at the reporters. His future search window had shrunk to just 1 hour. The news reports from this event wouldn't be online until after it concluded at the earliest. He had no way to search for Leo's work and copy it. Leo beamed at him, picked up a brush, and dipped it in ink. Ethan had no choice but to follow Leo's lead. Ethan seemed to be trying to stall, hoping for a last chance. But Leo deliberately slowed his pace, letting Ethan make a stroke, then adding his own. The result was self-evident. The figures flowing from Leo's brush were graceful and dynamic, like soaring swans or coiling dragons. Ethan's attempt looked like a child's doodle. Chloe glanced at Ethan, then stepped forward with a smile. Let me finish singing that song too. When the audience, still lost in the heavenly melody, finally came back to reality, they remembered they were at a press conference, not a concert. Chloe smiled, slinging her guitar off her shoulder as she left the stage. By now, Ethan Miller could barely stand, large beads of sweat rolling down his face. In the past life, Ethan had sacrificed the three of us, absorbing our chi or destiny, successfully upgrading his system to its maximum level. He could control online content for a year into the future. This gave him countless advantages, making him a legend in business and the arts. But in this life, his system abandoned him first. Mission failed. System energy depleted. System will forcibly detach in 5 seconds. Ethan clutched his head in agony. No! A ball of light drifted out from his head. I smiled faintly and caught the depleted light orb in my hand. You can see me. The system's mechanical voice held a flicker of artificial surprise. I smirked, holding the fragile light. Don't kill me. I can bind with you, it pleaded. I can let you foresee this world's future. Don't you want wealth? Seeing my mocking smile, it finally confessed its origins. This was a world within a book. The fake young master, Ethan, and I were the designated children of destiny. Chloe and Leo were meant to be our stumbling blocks. A world should only have one child of destiny. The system coveted the excess destiny and schemed to have me killed to absorb it. Unfortunately for it, having failed to absorb any destiny this time around, it was incredibly weak. The moment I held it, I understood why it feared me. Both Ethan and I could perceive its existence. A world has only one child of destiny. In its current state, a gentle squeeze from me would turn it to dust. I smiled and raised my hand, crushing it. With a piercing shriek, it disintegrated into ash. What happened to your hand? Leo asked, concerned, noticing a sudden cut. Why is it bleeding? It's nothing. It's all over, I said, winking at them with a light smile. Without his system, Ethan Miller quickly faded into mediocrity. Everything we had suffered online in our past life now descended upon him like an avalanche. When the Millers came looking for me again, I held up the signed agreement. Dad, Mom, you were the ones who wanted to part ways. Remember? I looked at them, a mocking smile playing on my lips. Your money has been settled. I didn't take a single penny earned during my time with you when I left. Don't worry, going forward, I'll send you a sum regularly based on current living costs. Consider it repayment for raising me. The Millers were helpless. The contract was black and white, undeniable. But it's easy to go from frugal to lavish and hard to go back. The Millers, accustomed to extravagance, couldn't adapt to a life of poverty. I chuckled inwardly, a flicker of irony in my eyes. That wasn't my problem anymore. Is the ending written? A message from my editor popped up. Proofread for typos and upload it quickly. I can't wait for it to go live. I chuckled again, a flicker of irony in my eyes. Reduced to poverty, Ethan desperately clung to Sophia, wanting to become a son-in-law of the prominent Sioux family at all costs. The role of a Sioux family son-in-law, a decorative vase, isn't something a washed-up loser like you can handle, Sophia likely thought, or perhaps said. She wouldn't marry him now. Instead, she publicly announced her engagement to another rising talent in New York. I smirked. Wealthy families needed status symbols, presentable facades. Without his halo, how could Ethan possibly qualify for the title of a Sioux son-in-law? The perfect couple, the genius and the beauty of the last life, were now embroiled in constant conflict. Sophia, you said you'd love me, he probably pleaded. Forced into bankruptcy by compensation claims, the once celebrated Ethan Miller ended up working as a cleaner in a mall. Hounded by debt collectors, he couldn't eat or sleep properly. His once handsome face aged prematurely. He stared intently at Sophia when he saw her, blocking her path, begging for a shred of their past affection. Why would Sophia pay him any mind? She already had other men around her. When both Sophia and Ethan fell together from the top floor of the shopping mall, her face still wore a look of disbelief. The Sioux family lost an eldest daughter, but I knew they had plenty of other candidates for that position. I closed the news report and looked towards the horizon. Leo and Chloe walked in, smiling. Got the illustrations ready for your new book, just like I promised, Leo said. When it gets adapted into a show, let me sing the theme song, Chloe added eagerly. She loved the story and insisted on composing the music herself. I nodded, my eyes crinkling with a smile. Outside, the sky was painted with the colors of dawn. I thought the sun tomorrow would surely be exceptionally bright.